Good evening. The May 6th Design Review Board 2 public meeting is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speakers cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. And roll call. Mr. Baladian?
Here.
Mr. Garagos?
Here.
Mr. Malikian?
Here.
Ms. Sakai? Absent. And Mr. Zorifian is absent. Report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on April 29th, 2010. Oral communications. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not a part of this agenda? Do you have any cards?
I have no cards.
Great. Okay. Seeing none, we are on to the review calendar. Staff this time doesn't have any staff announcements. There is nothing on consent, and so we'll go on to the regular DRB agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Welcome one and all. We're going to start with 2 PDR 2010-017-A, 350 Riverdale Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Before you, now you can hear me, is, as you stated, case 2010-017-A, located at 350 Riverdale Drive. The project primarily just consists of a new 500 square foot guest house. It's an accessory building, and it will be located at the rear of the existing a site which is the site is 7,500 square feet. There's an existing house currently on the property which is 1,375 square feet. I'll make this presentation short because, like I said, it's pretty straightforward. They're not changing the front of the house. It's strictly a new guest house at the rear. Staff does recommend approval of the project because its design and use of materials are complementary and compatible with the front main house. Staff does recommend 2 items to be considered, and that would be, number 1, to consider introducing a window on the north and south elevations in order to reduce or minimize that blank wall that basically just has a break in the roof, but there are no additional treatments as far as articulating that facade. And 2, to provide a continuous roof, for example, a shed roof at the smaller piece at the back, and that would be where the main entrance to that guest house is located, for greater design integration. Again, as far as site planning, no major changes, and the same thing with mass scale and building design and detailing. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff?
You're talking about the porch cover?
That is correct, because there is no porch cover right now.
Okay, so you're proposing that we should add up?
Only if it, in my opinion, only if it meets zoning requirements, because I know that the applicant was exploring different options that we had suggested. However, I don't know to what degree that would comply with code. For example, if they were to introduce, let's say, a post in order to hold, if they were to actually extend that roof canopy, that may be a zoning issue because they have to comply with the minimum and average setback because it's in a multifamily zone.
Well, I was going to say, if it was a solid roof, it wouldn't comply then, right?
Correct. As long as they don't encroach more than 30 inches of that eave into the setback.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Antonique Sayand?
Do you have the photos of the front?
State your name and address, please.
My name is Antronic Sayan, 316 North Maryland Avenue, Glendale. I want to respond for her suggestions regarding the shed roof. We put that we will not comply with the setback averaging.
Average setback, yeah.
And if we push the guest house further to the west, it will be closer to the garage,
Right.
and I will not have the 5-foot clearance. So
Yeah.
we explored many ways, and it's really hard. For the window, we can switch the bedroom window, which is
Yeah.
on the west side, put it on the north side.
That'd be nice, yeah.
Yes, but on the south side, to put the window behind a 3-story building,
Yeah, it's not nice.
you don't have privacy, you know.
Yeah.
So we can meet, this is one of the suggestions, but the other one will make the project impossible.
Right. Okay.
So if
Thank
you
you.
have any questions?
Sure. Any questions for the owner? Applicant?
No.
No? Thank you very much. Anybody else speaking on behalf of this project? Okay. Anybody want to start?
Want to close?
Go for it.
I just-
It's closed?
Closed.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I just have, I know it's a very simple addition, I just have 2 comments and 2 suggestions. I think the E vents or the attic vents, I think it would be nice to have it kind of matching the front, and also the extension or the cantilever of the overhang or the roof. There's some rafter tails and support bracings, and so those details, if that can be carried to the back, it would be
Yeah.
pretty much consistent with what you have in the front. So I think that would be my suggestion. That's it.
Straightforward. I have no comments. It's a simple project, so
Yeah.
no comment.
I agree. I think the question is really the way the fascia's done and the bracket and the way there's like a step fascia. And as long as the fascia material is the same dimension and it matches the front house, I think it would be nice. And also, he agreed to putting the window on the north side of the bedroom. I think that'd be a nice idea also. If somebody wants to make a motion to those as conditions, that'd be great.
I'll make a motion with the conditions.
May I go over the conditions briefly?
Yes.
Again, to introduce a window that was the north elevation, correct?
Yes.
And eaves and attic vents should match the front main house. And extension of the canopy should include fascia, brackets / rafter tails similar to the front main house.
In the gables,
In the gables.
there'll be brackets
Okay.
and outriggers that are like the front house.
And that was a motion by Board Member
Second.
Malikian
I second it.
and a second by Board Member Baladian. Board Member Malikian?
Yes.
Board Member
Wait,
Baladian?
let me just, if he had one comment quickly.
Yeah, we can carry those similarities to the north side, but the south side is not visible.
South side won't be necessary. I would, if we can amend that, I agree. Thank you very much. Thank you. You
Oh,
agree with that?
except the south side.
The gables only on the north side? You want to amend that or not?
1 second. That's fine.
It's facing the apartment building.
That's fine.
So,
You amend it so the details would be matched on the north face.
Okay, roll call. Board Member Malikian?
Yes.
Board Member Baladian?
yes.
Chairperson Garagos?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, we will be moving on to 2 PDR 2010-013-A, 1101 North Cedar Street. Ms. Toledo? You have to move in a different chair or not? The same chair?
This project is located, as you stated, at 1101 North Cedar Street. It is located in the R1 Low Density Residential Zone, Floor Area Ratio District 2. The project is located on the corner of Cedar and Dryden Streets. It is a corner property. The site is currently developed with a one-story, 2,138 square foot single-family house with a detached 400 square foot garage. There's an existing permitted 269 square foot carport attached to the garage facing Dryden Street. And again, the addition of 248 square feet will be located between the garage and the house facing Dryden Street. In order to accommodate the addition, part of the scope of work includes removing the existing CMU wall that currently exists in this area facing Dryden. The addition will remain one story in height, and ultimately the garage will be attached to the house. However, there won't be a connection between the house and the garage. The total area for the house with the addition will be 2,386 square feet, and the proposed colors and materials for the addition will match the existing, and that includes, again, the roof materials, stucco, color and finish and details, and the windows. And part of the details includes, because this is a unique ranch design with contemporary application of storybook features, some of the features that are carried out on the addition or around the addition will be the decorative plaster and stonework that has been again essentially applied throughout the street-facing facades. Once again, it's another straightforward project. Staff had 2 comments to make, and we recommend approval with the following to be considered: to provide a hipped roof or clipped gable on the addition in lieu of the proposed gable for greater overall consistency and design integration, and 2, to clearly identify the trash area location on the site plan. And as far as site planning, again, no major changes at all. Mass and scale, it is compatible and it will not significantly change compared to the existing. And as far as, again, building design and details, they are proposing to match existing. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I am available. Before I conclude, though, however, there was a letter that was submitted in support of the project, so I just wanted for you to be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Okay, I have one card from Don Loscazio. Say your name and address, please.
John Locascio, 931 North Isabel Street. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Ms. Toledo pointed out, this is a pretty straightforward project. I just wanted to address the issue of staff's first recommendation, which is changing the gable roof to a hip or hipped gable. The reason why it was designed, actually there are several reasons why it was designed, why the addition was designed with a gable. First and foremost, the garage is set at an odd angle to the house. So the west wall of the addition follows that angle and is therefore not at right angles to the north and south walls of the addition. Framing a hip on that angle would be very, very awkward, and it would look very odd from the street. And what actually a gable is the least obtrusive design for that wall. I think I understand what staff is looking for, but I think their recommendation is actually going to have the opposite effect. Also, the house currently, the existing house has a combination of hipped gables and sheds. The garage has a shed roof that appears from the street to be a front-facing gable, or I'm sorry, a side-facing gable. So the addition's gable actually creates a nice transition as it steps down from the house to the garage. And lastly, the interior of the house, almost all of the rooms have vaulted or cathedral ceilings. If we are required to put a hipped roof on the addition, we will not be able to match that because a hip or a hipped gable would require a king post and beam across the middle of the room, which would basically obliterate any possibility of a vaulted ceiling to match the rest of the interior. So we would ask that you consider those reasons and not attach recommendation number 1 to approve this project. Thank you.
Can you just comment on the trash enclosure?
Be happy to.
Do you know where you're planning it? Or?
It'll depend. I'll have to see because of the garage is at an odd angle again to the property line as well as to the house. There might be room on the west side if we can keep it out of the side yard setback, or it would have to go behind the garage adjacent to the pool area. But before we submit for plan check, we'll run that by Ms. Toledo and certainly have a trash area. A trash enclosure.
I don't want to belabor the clip gable issue, but sometimes on the other ones, especially on that house also, it's a very small element, and you could almost handle it within the overhang, the eave overhang, and actually do the clip just in that point. Is that an option or not for you?
We would have to.
Because the one that's there is pretty small. I mean,
Yeah, the one
You
that's
don't do
there,
that in the roof framing
Is-
without even getting into the vault.
again, though, that odd angle, it still won't be,
Still feel that problem.
it's still going to be very odd. It's going to be very awkward.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any comments for the questions? No?
Nope.
Anybody want to speak on this project? Take it away. Who wants to start?
Again, it's a simple project, and I don't have problems with the roof design as presented. I mean, it's not much we're doing. We're keeping all the same finishes and all that, so I'm okay with it.
So am I. I think the submittal package, I think it's done really well. Very simple, 4 or 5 pages. I think it clearly identifies where it's being demolished on the interior and how they're going to attach it. I think it's done really well, and I think when it's done, I think it's going to really blend in, and it's not going to look like an addition. So I think my hat's off to you.
And you're going to be taking all the plants out in order to look like the 3D? Or no? Just, no? You going to keep the plants? Okay, just checking. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the project, crossing out the roof comment. I'm okay with the trash. I think the architect convinced me with that.
Okay, do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, that was a motion to approve the project with the one condition, just to identify a trash location on the plan. And that was a motion by Board Member Malikian, a second by Board Member Baladian. Board Member Malikian?
Yes.
Board Member Baladian?
Yes.
Chairperson Garagos?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
You want to give us an unofficial break? I will
Okay.
get the next,
Going faster. Man, this is a record.
Very nice.
Tell me what you want, guys. I'll take care of it.
This is a record.
I can whip him into shape.
We'll be right here.
Bob? Okay. Bob or Robert? Is it Bob? Bob, okay. Then who's next? Bob, Robert, then Chris. Okay. No.
Gosh, well, I'm really.
What's going on?
We run a tight ship here.
Wow, you finished?
We run a tight ship around here.
Well, I apologize. I'm completely baffled.
This isn't the federal government around here. Come on.
Yeah.
We don't mess around.
Yeah, we're here to.
We're not messing around here. Sorry to spoil your dinner.
No. All right. I guess the applicants are all here. There they all are. All right. Hey, Mr. Chair, members of the board, our next project is located at 1200 South East Colorado, and the case number is PDR 2010-007. It's a first-time submittal seen by the board members. We have our site plan, floor plan, the roof plan, elevations, perspective, little section views showing some of the parapet changes up through here. The applicant has submitted a landscape plan. Some of the material board basic things you can see for the awning colors, building stucco colors, stone material. There's a red band element that's going to be going across up here.
That's a lighted element. I didn't catch that before.
Yeah, it's a light element.
It's
Yeah.
not like, it's
Can you hear that?
LED.
Yes, sir.
LED.
So,
Light. It's under the category of light.
and we have some photographs here for you all. Yes, sir. And these are some sketches that staff worked with the applicant on too, if you're looking at this. And so at this point, really the primary changes to the building are that the staff worked with the applicant on were the front areas, which is right through here. And on some of the sketches that we had with the applicant, we showed them some ideas to create some type of sort of a bench seating, to create a streetscape presence. And they were going to change up the planter areas through here, make some rearrangements. You can see some of the underlying planter areas. And staff had asked them to consider maybe expanding this concept to here, and then adding some trees over in here. And that pretty much was the gist of our conversations with the applicant. We met with him several times, as noted in the staff report. And we had some conditions here that we asked them to look at. At this point, the applicant did submit, this pretty much is in line with what we've talked about. They didn't want to do that part, which we have as condition. And then over here, they felt that any type of planting or trees over here would block their signage and this elevation, which they were against that. And they have some, as you can see here, their umbrella and benches, seating that they'll have here. That's kind of gives you an idea what to do there. Anyway, that pretty much concludes our comments here. I can go into more detail if you'd like on these things.
The color scheme, is it something from Burger King? Is that
Yes.
the same
Well, one of the-
color from
yes.
their corporate colors?
Yes.
Or these new colors?
When the applicant came to us, they basically said, this is our standard design that Burger King wants.
With those brownish, yellowish stuff?
I think it was more the physical design than anything else. The red band, I believe, is theirs. I believe we saw this as well. We pretty much didn't
How
get
about
into
the
the building
yellow
as much.
one, the primary color?
I don't know, sir. That's a fair question. I'm sure Mr. Taylor can answer that question.
The windows are changing though, right? There's less glazing now?
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir. They're having some changes to the front. You can see over here, they've made modifications in here and over here as well. But I can go through those conditions that we went through. One was, the first ones I mentioned were the bench seating. We kind of tried to focus on that, adding some trees in those areas and on the patio areas. One of the things here, this element, we just asked that this element here, that the walls just fur out a little bit more to create more of a presence there. We have asking for like a capstone on the wainscot veneer. Increase the band dimension. We're looking for some more similarity. There was some concerns that some of this banding was too many different size dimensions, so we were asking for that change. The landscape plan, the applicant submitted a landscape plan. I talked to their landscape architect, called, and we talked about his concerns here. This Phase 2 Be Water Wise issue that the city's trying to implement, they want the new planting to be consistent with it. And what the landscape architect told me, he said, we have a mix. We have a lot of existing, and we have some new, and some of the new is just the same planting as the existing, and we didn't want to mix and match. I said, well, the board members, you make your decision, but for us, given the opportunity to upgrade to something more consistent is what we were looking for. with the Be Waterwise. And we noticed several of these weren't on the Be Waterwise list. So we just made some notations on that. One of the concerns that I had, I wasn't quite sure on this back side as you look at it from the south elevation. I just wanted to make sure, and they're showing on their section views here that it may work, but it looks like. I just wanted to make sure that this mechanical equipment was going to be below the parapet. So if it is, that's fine. But I just wanted to make sure that was an issue, that everybody understood that it wasn't going to be just a separate parapet wrapped around it like you would on an existing building, since we have the opportunity now to screen it as part of the original design. So that was the only reason I brought that up, because see how it kind of drops a little bit. I just wanted to make sure that wraps. Probably does, but I just wanted to make sure. And then there was a couple of changeable copy signs. You can have, these are like wall signs. You can have one. You got two more here. They really can't. But they're you know, that's what I'm assuming those are. There's nothing in there. Display case. So I'm not sure what you put in the display case. I called it a changeable copy sign. I may be wrong, but that's what I called it. So.
And if it was a changeable copy sign, that's a problem because you have
Because it's on the wall.
the same wall as the main
Yeah,
sign.
and this is a wall,
Yeah.
and this is one facade,
Yeah.
and so you can have one. You can't have three.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to for us.
Any questions, staff? Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Starting with the public hearing, Bob Taylor, please state your name and address.
Bob Taylor, 2910 West Broadway, City of Los Angeles, zip code 90041. Thanks to Chris for explaining briefly our concept. We're not adding any square footage. We're not changing the use. These plans were submitted for design review on February 3rd of this year, and in the 3 months since, the manufacturer of the stone veneer has discontinued that stone. So what we'd like to do is have you review our alternate for that. If Chris would be so pin that up. And what we've done is we've replaced the stone and put in stucco, and it'll be painted with a Padre Island brown. And these colors, by the way, are the Burger King colors. These are requested by Burger King.
New colors.
New colors, yes. Nationwide. Now I'd like to discuss the conditions, and I'll go through them item by item. Number one, extend the streetscape bench design to the westerly planter in front of the planter, in front of the existing planter, I assume. We question the staff's authority to suggest or request the expansion of the submitted scope of work. This is a remodel. It's not the Americana. The city recently completed a street improvement project along Colorado Street, and it included the installation of new public benches, landscaping, and lighting. There are no benches in front of any of the other fast food restaurants along Colorado Boulevard. If the city thought it was important to have benches at every bus stop, why didn't they provide them? Nowhere does the city provide more than one bench. Why are we required to provide 3 benches? 3 benches with a condition. Adding another bench will further decrease the amount of landscape area. It'll encourage loitering and create a visual distraction for vehicles making a right turn out of the parking area onto Colorado. Placing the bench back to back with the outdoor patio will discourage customers from using the tables closest to the occupied bench. People prefer a crowd-free comfort zone. What are the legal implications of providing a public bus bench on private property? Who is liable for injuries sustained on or near this bench? Who maintains the benches? Who scrapes the gum off? Who takes care of the graffiti? Staff should do a little research before they require these additional improvements. Item 2, incorporate the streetscape landscape planner design, including wall seating and trees, into the outdoor patio design. We have an existing outdoor patio with 4 tables. If we add additional landscaping to that area, we're going to lose tables. It's going to be a very confined space. Item 3, add 2 24-inch box trees to the outdoor patio planters, the new, I assume, and 1 24-inch box tree to the existing planter in the front of the restaurant. Shade trees are not necessary in these locations because each outdoor table has its own umbrella. Additional large trees will obscure the view of our newly renovated building and the signage. Item 4, we're out the building walls 4 inches at the northwest corner to distinguish this design element and allow materials and different colors to end in corners. The owner may accommodate this request. Number 5, add a precast concrete capstone. We're eliminating the wainscot, so a capstone is unnecessary. Number 6, increase the dimension of all the red fascia.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but just as you're going through it, what are you proposing now instead of the wainscot?
It's the new elevation. It's the stucco.
Is there any change? It's just a color change of stucco?
There is a aluminum reveal, stucco reveal, separating the two colors.
Separating the two, but it's the same plane,
Yes.
different stucco.
And then going back to number 4, what was the answer for the fur out?
The owner may accommodate that
We're open
request.
to that. Sorry, go on. I just want to,
Okay.
as you're going through them, I'll hit them just.
Back to number 6, increase the dimension of all the red fascia band widths to the larger size on the top of the parapet surfaces around the building to match the dimension on the northwest elevation. What we have there is 2 materials. We have a sign band, which is internally illuminated with a continuous red acrylic lens. That's the thicker red band that you see there. That'll be lit at night. The other red band is simply a red painted coping at the top of the parapet. And you're asking us to make a coping that's larger than is necessary. Can I have more time?
Yeah, I think because we're making some headway, if they can work accordingly, so.
Okay. Anyway, we have 2 materials. We have the acrylic lens and then we have a painted sheet metal. And to make the 2 look similar is going to be very difficult because the sheet metal expands and contracts, and it's going to have a wavy appearance, whereas the sign band is going to be a nice, straight, clean, glossy finish and appearance. It'll be very hard to have the 2 match. And then it'll also create some problems for us where we have our corner feature element with a curved end. To provide a thicker coping that radiuses around that corner, you're going to have to cut. You're going to have a lot of seams. A bigger coping is going to have bigger seams, and that is going to be unsightly, in my opinion. Item number 7, submit a landscape plan documenting that all new landscaping shall be drought-tolerant, California-friendly landscaping, consistent with the city's Phase 2 water conservation emergency requirements. I think our landscape architect has done a good job in incorporating new planting material into the existing landscape design. Again, we have existing landscaping. A majority of the site will remain existing landscaping, but we are removing or replacing some existing material with new material. And the newer planters in the front, he has tried to provide some drought-tolerant plants. Number 8, all rooftop equipment shall be screened from the roof or a roof screen designed to be consistent with the building's proposed prototype design. The building sections we provided show that the existing rooftop equipment is screened from the view from the public right-of-way, and the parapet height has been increased in some areas to 6 feet, and in other areas, as at the corner, to 9 feet. Number 9, remove the changeable copy sign and display cases. Burger King Corporation has shown these display cases for their promotional toys, cups, things they offer on a seasonal basis. And the owner may accommodate this request.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Questions?
Have any questions for the applicant?
I have one question. Coming back to the color, how the color I see in this picture, is this the current color of Burger King's?
That is the new corporate red band for all Burger
How about
Kings.
the primary color?
The wall color.
The wall color.
The wall color there, that's a night scene, so I can't tell you.
It's a light beige color.
They have several, they have 2 different schemes to choose from, and this is one of them.
Okay. Well, can we know the second scheme colors?
And I have one question for you. Can you go back to the mic? You said that there was, the stone manufacturer has discontinued the one you wanted.
This line.
Is the reason why we just didn't find another line, and now that we've taken it off completely?
We have ordered, we've looked at other manufacturers and similar materials. We got a sample today, we brought it along, but it doesn't match what we had proposed, and I don't think it looks good with this combination of colors.
I don't want to presuppose. Okay. Thank
I
you.
don't know which one.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Robert Stevenson?
To clarify,
Yes.
it is a code requirement that all new landscaping comply with the drought tolerant requirement.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Yeah.
We need to keep this.
No, you cannot.
I'm sorry,
This
but
is my only copy. It wasn't submitted.
If it's presented, it has to be kept, actually.
I think we can get a copy.
We can
Mr.
make a
Taylor,
copy of that.
can we get a copy of that?
Fine. It's just when it gets presented, it usually needs to keep. That's why we're,
Do you need
Use
a
it as part
copy
of
of
the
that to help you deliberate this case?
I would like to have a copy, yes.
Yes.
No.
Can we just move this along, Mr.
Yes.
Taylor? Thank you very much.
okay, Robert Stevenson?
Robert Stevenson, 222 Monterey Island Road, Unit 406. My main concern is having city-owned benches on private property. I think there's a lot of liability in that. I would not want to do that. I called my insurance man, and he said, you got mixed liability, and it may cause a major problem if anybody gets hurt. It may be a problem for the city, it may be a problem for us, and we would prefer not to be putting benches in that kind of a situation. Secondarily, we just completed a remodel. Burger King requires you to redo your buildings every 10 years. Usually, the franchise is usually a 20-year franchise, and we just completed one over in Eagle Rock with the same colors. These colors, frankly, as depicted there, are not quite the way the colors come out, and they're kind of disappointing to me when I saw the coloring there. I think, Bob, don't you have a flip of?
The actual feed samples are on.
Oh, okay. And that's about all I have, unless you have some other questions.
Any questions, Fielder? Okay, thank you very much. Chris Schutzer. Yes, sir. Not Baxter. There's too many consonants now, and I apologize. Schmutzer.
Chris Schmutzer.
Schmutzer, okay, good. I got it.
4914 El Sereno, La Crescenta. The only comment that I have echoes Robert's, which is the color scheme. You know, Burger King does have different color schemes that are available throughout the United States, and we've looked at several of them over the years, and I've been doing this for quite a number of years. This will be probably the fifth or sixth remodel that I've been through, and that particular color scheme with the two-tone look really complements the building style very well, I think, as opposed to there's a pale blue or some other color like that in there. And when you go up and down Colorado and you look at the buildings that have recently been remodeled, the McDonald's and the Taco Bell, they are usually using similar colors to that. So, particularly in Southern California, I think that's the best look for us, and it complements the blue awnings well. Any of the other comments that Bob made or Taylor made about things that we would be willing to accommodate, we can remove the display cases. I have no issue with that at all. That's not a problem. And the parapet will screen the equipment because it screens it now. So
I think an issue I would have would be changing out the stone. And I was just wondering if you wanted to present something else other than just the stucco for the stone.
Yeah, there's two different looks that Burger King will allow you to do. One is stone and one is straight stucco. And we have, if you're familiar with some of the Burger Kings in the area, there's several of them have stone at the bottom of them. It's an ongoing maintenance issue, where stucco is much easier to deal with. We can paint it when it gets kicked. Rocks don't fall off the cap, even if we use a concrete cap, because we have that in several locations. We constantly have a problem with water. I'm painting it two different colors. As Robert said, we have that in our Eagle Rock restaurant, where we have a screed across that differentiates the two colors, and it really looks good. So our preference would be, from a long-term maintenance standpoint, to not have to do stone.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak on this topic? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Whoever would like to start?
I'll start.
We're scanning the document to print out on our color printer. We don't have a copier that prints color, so it'll be a few minutes.
Okay.
I saw it. Okay, where do we start? I have few comments. The color scheme, I'm not comfortable with the color scheme they're proposing. It's kind of dark, in my opinion. And after seeing the other schemes that Burger King has, I probably will pick, I think we saw one of the other ones at the bottom, which is closer to this picture color. I think it's lighter, it's more inviting. I feel like the color scheme that they're proposing right now is kind of dark. And also, the question is, I like that you guys are remodeling this building, upgrading it, but the only problem I have is with the west elevation. As a current elevation right now, as you see at the pictures, I think, in my opinion, it looks more inviting to the building than what you guys are proposing. It's kind of, I don't know if my colleagues agree with me or not, the west elevation kind of looks not inviting. It looks like a side wall design. If I'm going to that Burger King, which I've been to that one plenty of times, the existing elevation, look at the pictures, it looks more inviting, it looks more open, there's more windows. This one, it's kind of a sidewall. Maybe it needs more windows where the signage, you have those two signages for future features, movie, whatever. But I think it needs more lighting. The dining area, it's kind of dark. I think it's going to be too dark, in my opinion. I think instead of putting those signs, I think we should add some more windows at that wall. I mean, it's not a happy place to sit down and have a burger with your kids or whoever. I have the west elevation is not well designed, in my opinion. The front, the north facing the street, it looks nice. It's inviting. The more I agree with the staff, additional benches and all that will create more inviting and happy to sit there. But those are basically the two issues I have: the color scheme and the west elevation, which is not properly, in my opinion, perfectly designed. That's it.
Thank you.
I'm not 100% sure the purpose of this whole exercise of spending all this money and upgrading this building. I think a major opportunity has been lost, and I completely disagree with the idea of the stone being discontinued. I think what it was originally proposed, it had some character, but still had some issues with that. Now that we're looking at a plaster wall, I think it is the architect's responsibility to, rather than present a plaster box to us, which, as Mr. Paladian mentioned, the existing had a presence. You would go, and it was the mansard roof or whatever it was that it consciously or subconsciously, you would know that you're driving up to Burger King. But now we have the opportunity to upgrade this, and creating this blank facade of plastered box, reducing windows and openings that we're here to approve a square, undetailed and articulated structure. I agree. The colors. I think the colors that has been presented are not the choice that I would want to have on the building. I agree, and I'm not sure why the options were in place for us, and why the confrontation of not allowing us to look at it. And that's not an approach to get this project approved. And going down the list, thank you. I did not buy the architect's appeal for the bench, but I concur with the presentation that Mr. Stevenson gave in regards to the insurance. I would allow him to make that decision, and I'll make that as a consideration rather than a recommendation. And if that is possible, I would appreciate. But to have those arguments that the architect made, if we would have left it as that, I would have gone with what the staff was asking for. As far as the rest of the items, again, if we're putting in a new planting, there's hardly any actual landscaping. Most of it is ground covers and bushes there. So if we are actually going through a landscape palette that we're proposing, I definitely want them to be drought tolerant. And I think it would be architect's responsibility to propose a landscape palette that fits within what it is. And I think at the end of the day, I think it would be a good savings to the owner as far as reducing the amount of water usage. I'm not convinced at all with the design. I've never been, and I will never, ever approve a plaster box that the colored articulations have been separated by just the reveal. I don't know even the 4 inches acceptable. I think if the design was done differently, the construction cost of this is going to be enormous. I think it's going to be a very expensive construction cost, what it's being proposed, the mansard being removed, so I think if you're going through the expense, I think it would be a good idea. I'm not saying to add materials. With what you have, I think there's definitely ways to articulate the facade and a lot more inviting, a lot better, rather than creating these fake parapets that basically do not have any reason to be there. I mean, I really don't see why we have that corner piece where it's pretty much flush with the rest of the facade. I think a 4-inch is a good start. I think the rendering, the perspective is actually showing it one direction, but if you drive up Chevy Chase and look at that, you're going to see this piece of wall just extended above the parapet, and it's just curved, and it's just going to look really out of place. So I think it needs to be as a volume. And I'm not sure why this corner is being accentuated without creating a actual entry point there, and why the corner, and if the corner is being accentuated with a tower element, why not create a focal entry point, or that would be the main entrance, whereas we already have an entrance at one point. So it's creating these areas that it's questionable.
Misleading.
It's misleading. Other than that, I think the outdoor patio areas is fine. But again, I think it's just a missed opportunity in this design. So.
Okay, thank you. In agreement with my colleagues, I think the bench issue could go either way. I can understand how that could be a liability issue. A couple things that struck me when I was looking at the design is that, and it's funny that it came up with that image. I was thinking, well, why couldn't those awnings have tile roofs on it or something? So it was kind of interesting that image had those tile roofs. That metal roof on that seems so flimsy and kind of inexpensive and kind of not up to the caliber that the rest of what you're proposing. And I think the idea of taking the stone off is a truly missed opportunity. And I think it's, for a building with so little detailing on it, I think it's important to have at least some materials that bring out the importance of it. So I would feel strongly about keeping the stone back on it. Couple things quickly. I agree the fur out on the tower would help. I do understand the point about the fact that, what is the nature of the tower and how could it be more interesting or used more appropriately. I could understand the issues about the box trees, so I could be flexible on that. A couple other ones, as mentioned, I think the landscape plan does need to be consistent with water-wise. There's very little out there that means anything or is of any much cost, so I think bringing it up would not be onerous. The rooftop equipment, I think that could just be a note, something that could be addressed during construction to make sure that that actually was the case. And the copy signs, if that actually is the code requirement, those aren't allowed, in which case I would like to see the windows back in, or at least whatever window area there was. I think it would help that side of the house, that side of the building. And it might give you an opportunity to extend the canopies on that side. I think it's kind of an interesting idea to do in the stone piece, to do the tile elements that they used, and it just so happens in that picture. I think it's a nice element, especially when you're doing a building that has so little detailing on it. That it's nice to do something that either adds interest by means of the material or by the means of the shape. So those would be my comments.
I'll make a motion to return for redesign. I second comments.
Does Mr. Baxter want to read back our understanding of the conditions?
Chris, can you turn your mic on?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. The use of the lighter color screen
I think it's
scheme.
the pillar metal arc
The bottom one.
Yeah, pillar metalwork
is more pleasing than
And okay.
even the wide
Can I see
high
that, sir?
are.
Okay, so the use of the pillar metal or color scheme is more appropriate. Okay. Then I have another on the west elevation to add more windows or openings to make it a friendlier presence on that elevation.
Well, I don't know if you want to open, but I mean, if they're
Windows?
filling in windows, it seems like they are. It's not clear with the plans that it's been provided. I don't know if they're filling or not, so it's not really clear. But if they are filling, I wouldn't recommend. But their approach is not
It's creating
right.
a box.
Yeah.
So, but it'd be
But on the west, we did hear that the changeable copy signs do need to be removed per code, and we did hear.
Is it copy sign or is it a display?
It's considered a wall sign.
Okay.
So we did hear a consensus about having additional windows on that side. Okay, so whether they exist currently or not, it sounds like the board is asking for windows on the west elevation. Great, thanks.
Then we have on the benches. If I may go back to our issue on our conditions, if we could look at that. We had here as a condition.
Somebody took mine.
I have here is extend streetscape bench design to the westerly planter and firm the outdoor patio. And number 2 was incorporate streetscape landscape planter design, including wall seating and trees, into the outdoor patio area. And number 3, these are all tied together. And number 3, add 2 24-inch box trees in the patio planter and a 1 24-inch box in the streetscape planter in front of the restaurant.
Can you show that on
Yes,
the
sir.
site, not on the landscape plan, actually on the site plan?
Yes, sir. Sure will. I was hoping that. Oh, here's the little. Have this. So here is our 2 bench seats, and we were thinking of just taking this concept and adding it here with a tree, and then having a couple of trees over here. That was these 3 conditions. That was.
But they are doing pilasters, though, on the other the patio dining.
That is
right?
correct, sir. They're wrapping
Yeah.
it just like this.
Okay,
So
what do
here's
you
our
actually-
west elevation here.
What are you actually proposing that's different about the 2?
Well, what you have, these on the north elevation, you have the little, so it's a small little 18-inch high.
You like the half wall, okay.
Yeah, the little curve. I handed out something that we worked with them on, right there. So it's kind of those little bench type seating.
Except the second planter, though, would let more planting show from the street side, though.
That's correct.
That would let
That's,
more planting show.
that is correct, sir, and
Okay.
that would be, see, here's the little bench action right there, but that's exactly correct.
Yeah, in addition,
Oh, right
none
there,
of
30.
that would,
See,
Oh.
that's,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Just to clarify, all of that would be on private property. None of it would become city-owned. These are simply recommendations that we're making to the design, like we make recommendations to any other design for your consideration.
I just mentioned one thing the staff did when we worked with the applicant on this, and I understand where they're coming from. It's very understandable, it's kind of their frustration with this. One of the things that we worked on is we found very early in the process the standard comment that this is a corporate design, and we really can't make any changes. So staff kind of acknowledged that. There was a little bump here at the end, but we got it solved out. But initially we kind of ran into the kind of the standard thing. Anytime we have a franchise, this is not the only one. Believe me, you all know what I'm talking about. And we said, okay, let's just go with that. And then we thought, well, maybe we can improve some of the streetscape. I mean, if we can't make changes to the building, let's work with the streetscape and give it a little presence. That was kind of the concept that we were thinking about at the time.
I think what it was failed explaining to us by the applicant was, if I'm not mistaken, the color scheme is pretty much what is dictated.
Yes, sir.
As far as
actually,
the-
even the this sort of thing here that they were saying is this whole concept here was supposedly the awnings and everything. We got the impression we're pretty adamant on that, and so we tried to work with them on it and try to accept it with making a few little things changes with the furring out of the walls, just sort of fine tuning as opposed to just.
And if that, in that case, if that was what it was approved by them, then how come all of a sudden we can go ahead and approve that with without the stone and with the
Well-
plaster? I mean, if that's what the corporate is asking, and how come they're all of a sudden they're allowing plaster base?
Well, if I may say, I believe this was their first submittal with the plaster base.
Okay,
And it got up here, and part of that was because we started working on this.
right.
So if they can't have the stone here, this is going to be stucco here.
Oh, no, wait, that's
You know what
not.
I'm saying? I mean, if there's no stone here, there's certainly no stone there. So I think that's kind
That
of.
hasn't been relayed.
And so this was their second submittal, and their final one was this sort of a version right here with this, I'm sorry, this would have been their last one, but this would have been their first one. I actually have a black and white line copy of it that shows a stucco base like this.
I think the second scheme is worse than the existing, what they have now, in my opinion.
I agree.
I'd rather have the old building than this
I agree.
proposal,
I completely agree.
to be honest with you.
Okay.
All right.
I mean-
Well, anyway, okay, real quick. What I was just wondering if the board members, what we were thinking of, since that was a question, was we were just thinking of just taking, let's say this, and putting it there. If that's, we can understand. Mr. Stevens makes a good point.
I mean,
Stuff
this is
how
a
we
Burger
wanna do
King
it.
you could find in the boonies. I mean, there's no population. I mean, this is Glendale. I mean, they have to impress a little bit, need some character, some material. I mean, this is unacceptable.
I-5.
No, yeah, somewhere it's
I-5.
Okay.
it's embarrassing.
All right, well, and let's, okay, so at this point here, let me just go through our recommendations real quick. First, extending the streetscape bench design. Is that a thumbs up, thumbs down? Is it a consideration?
Well,
I think it's a consideration. I don't think it's.
I don't.
Well, we're going to do it as a consider.
Again,
Number two.
just one quick thing, that the reason that I'm a little bit confused is that we're not, it's being proposed as there's going to be benches there. And that's how it's being proposed, right?
No, no.
That's what it's saying, concrete seat. That's what that's why I'm confused. I'm
Yes,
just like,
two
not-
of them do have that.
Another location. I
In
mean.
another location.
Okay,
wanna
so
add
if,
one more.
We would just be sir, we'd be doing it just taking this concept and putting it over here.
what I understood was that when Mr. Stevens came forward, that he, the way he explained, I assumed that the benches were going to be on the public right of way, and I said, okay, I agree, if you're going to be putting something on the public right of way,
Yes, sir.
but they're already proposing benches on their property there. So
That's
what you're
correct.
saying is to bring the design consistent to the upper, to
Yeah,
let
that's what
that,
staff is doing.
That's what
Because
staff
none of
is
this was ever proposed for the public right of way. I
Right,
think their
okay.
concern, and it's a legitimate one, their concern is, well, you're sitting this way and you're facing the public right of way. Even though it's on my private property, that's where the liability thing is referring to.
but they're already proposing that.
Well, we asked them for the streetscape improvements there. That was the
I don't
staff's
need-
request.
I mean,
Based on, I'm sorry.
So-
Based
so-
on some of this stuff that we see here, that was our request. And
No, I
they
understand,
complied right here.
but if we would have approved it this way, they're okay with that.
Yes, sir, at this point, that's correct. They're
Okay,
showing this
so-
right here. That would
So
be
what
correct.
you're saying is to take this and extend it over to this side.
That was
I don't
the
s-
idea. That was, so that's how we wanted to
Yeah, I
do
don't
it.
know.
And add some trees. That's the number 1, 2, and 3. We wanted to add bench, tree, and a couple of trees here. That was the idea. So if we do that, just let us know how you feel about that number 1, 2, and 3. We can do a consider on all of them. We can do condition on any of those
I'm fine with all three of them.
as conditions or considerations.
I'm fine with the conditions, 1, 2, and 3.
Do we have?
Conditions or consideration?
Conditions.
Conditions.
All right, sir. So I have the first one, I think we had one.
I don't think there's consensus on that.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. The first, there was one.
You want to make sure that they have the box trees?
Yes.
You want them to have the box trees?
Yes.
Okay, let's make a condition.
Okay, so we have three, those first three will be conditions. All right, sir. Okay, number 4, the fur out of that tower or parapet element that extends up the 4 inches. There was discussion about making that maybe a little bit more than 4 inches to give it some more presence.
Yes, yes.
Would you prefer something more?
I think 4 inches is just the start of it. I think they have a much bigger issue there.
Yes, including the issue of whether it be an entry as well as it gives a false impression of what the reason is for.
It has to make a difference. You know, it has to make a.
So should that condition read that the tower element, if it is to remain, must be more substantial in its design and potentially have an entry be more set off from the volume of the building, that kind of thing? Okay, thank you.
So the tower element to be more substantial, and one of the things I think, I'm sorry, Stephanie, if I didn't catch all that last part.
The tower element should be redesigned to be a more substantial architectural element,
Yes.
to be further set off from the main body of the building, potentially to include an entry feature or other ways to enhance that corner element.
All right. All right. Thank you. All right, and then at this point, there was an issue of the stone veneer. Now, the applicant is saying that this particular brand is discontinued. The board members felt that was a missed opportunity not to look for others. Should we say as a condition that we want the stone veneer to be on there?
Yes.
Okay, stone veneer to be added back. All right. And I assume if we're going with the front entry columns, or I should say post and railing, that should be stone veneer as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may, if the board wants to take a moment and consider this stone veneer with the new color palette, the blue color palette.
Not the blue.
It's not the blue.
Here you go.
The other.
Oh, sorry. I don't have that in front of me.
I think, as a general comment, I think just bringing the stone back doesn't. What I'm trying to say is that putting the stone back doesn't mean that the design is done and finished. So I think they have a lot more work. They can't just put the wainscoting of the stone back and assume that we're accepting it. I think there's a lot more work
All right.
there.
But the stone veneer needs to be.
It can be
it needs to be
whatever it is. I mean, whatever the
Architectural
corporate
detail.
is
Yeah.
approving. You know, if it's stone, if it's metal cladding, if it's wood siding, if it's whatever it is, whatever the.
You need to introduce more materials.
Just introduce materials, not plaster and separated by a review.
Okay.
More than one material.
Introduce more than one material. More than one material, and not just plaster separated by reveals. All right, sir. All right, and then we have, as we go down, that would then, the precast capstone, that would be applicable then, number 6, and how do we feel about that red fascia band at the top up there in terms of trying to have some consistency in band width?
I think there was a good point. There could be a hierarchy of those dimensions. So
So,
I
want me to
think
take that
that's-
one out?
But his argument was that the sheet metal, and there are many different details of sheet metal that can occur to give the depth without compromising the the actual details.
I was just saying, I think they could have different dimensions.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that was his question, part of his
Do you
question.
want to keep that condition, or should we modify it, or just
I
eliminate
think,
it?
I
You have a
think,
problem with the multiple dimensions? I think that's his.
Yes, sir.
Well,
But we were looking at that right there based on that.
I don't mind the multiple, like two different dimensions, right? There's just two,
Right,
right?
yeah. That you could have
is
different
it?
dimensions.
It's actually 3, sir.
It's actually 3. So you got 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with the multiple sizes. That's part
But
of the question.
this looks kind of funny to me, but.
Probably painted cap, metal cap.
So, so as is, those treatments are fine because one is the lighted band.
Right.
The others are painted metal fascia, and the
There's a
board
hierarchy
is,
within them that I think is.
and the
fine.
board is fine with that. So we'll remove that condition entirely.
Okay, we'll just remove that condition. So number 6, I'm just going to scratch here. We don't need to make any more mention of it. The landscape plan, well, that seems to be, the board members we're going to support that condition
Needs
about,
to be, yes.
yeah, following the city's requirements. The applicant is probably absolutely correct on number 8 for the rooftop screen. It was just staff's
Just a
more
note
of
to keep in
It
there.
was a note.
Yeah.
It was
No,
mainly
but keep
meant-
it in there. Keep the note in there.
I will
so
keep the note in there, sir.
During site review, you'll
All right, sir.
verify.
The number 9, the changeable copies, well, at this point, it looks like what we're going to do is add windows in that area instead.
Yeah.
And then, there's one other thing, too, was constantly mentioned back and forth with the board members, was the box concept as not having enough,
Articulation.
yes, sir. Did the board really want some articulation on it?
For me, one of the issues on that, and I think it, for me, is the fact that the awnings are so insignificant
Yes,
and inexpensive. I won't use the word cheap, but inexpensive looking,
yes.
that I think that's what diminishes it. And I think if the awnings were done in a way that was more substantial, I think then the plaster could then be a backdrop. For me, that's how I feel about it. I think by making those so cheap looking, it makes the whole project.
I just think that if they're going through this kind of expense to tear the mansard roof out and redo all the framing and redo all the plaster, the entire, literally reskin the entire building and put plaster back on again. Right now, even though, I'm not really fond of the design of what's there, there's a scale, there's a proportion to the building. It has layers of importance. It has a base, it has the glass, it has the mansard roof, and it has the little piece of the cap. And that creates this, the scale of the building, what it does is it creates this horizontal linear effect to this. But what they've done is they've literally shaved off this mansard roof and extended the parapet, and they've created this, and to me, I think, because the plans are not clear, I don't know if they're actually filling in windows or not, but by even adding more plaster, what they're doing is they're creating this square box, and everything is just plastered box, and that's all it is. And there's nothing, no thought has gone into making this a better
It's a major, it's a major corner.
Yeah, it is. It is, and you got a lot of examples. I mean, around town that I think they can go and they got the Carl's Jr. and that's a plaster box.
So
Yeah, all kinds of stuff that it was.
I think we're hearing a couple of things. We're hearing the possibility of improving the awnings in their material and overall design. And as a corollary, we're also hearing that the board is wanting to see more architectural interest in the overall design.
Maybe different schemes. I mean, different approach. I mean, I don't know.
And okay,
leave that,
so
yeah.
we'll add we'll add as a last condition as a condition or maybe a consideration. And that's a question to you.
Explore different-
Consider providing additional architectural interest in the overall design, or would you like that to be a condition as well?
I have introduced architectural interest to the, to the design.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, and if I may say, there's one thing that the applicant is up against one thing that, and just so we understand, when we start doing articulation, we have to be careful about not adding floor area because that will trigger parking, and the applicant has a nice setup, so we are working within those boundaries to be sensitive to their situation.
He doesn't need to add any footage. It's not
Doesn't add that square
Doesn't need
footage,
that
okay.
footage.
We call it plastic surgery.
Plaster surgery. All right. Okay, so then I have a series of conditions here. From the first one is the color scheme, the lighter one, based on that Pilar metal lark, add windows at west elevation, remove those changeable copy signs, tower element to be, and now I'm going to listen to the tape on this one, tower element to be more substantial and to be further set off from the building and to enhance the corner element, possibly an entry. That's what I'm going to check on the wording on that. And then I have another stone veneer to be added back into the design as a design material. Introduce more than one material, not just plaster separated by reveals. Redesign awnings to be more substantial and be more substantial in material and design, and introduce architectural interest to the building design. That kind of give the overall.
Can we get a roll call?
Yes, sir. We have a roll call. We have a return for resign by Mr. Malikian, and we have a second by Mr. Boladian. And roll call, we have Mr. Boladian
Yes.
and Mr. Malikian.
Yes.
And Mr. Garagos.
Yes.
So that would be return for resign with conditions.
Can we do it at the end? I'll give you a few minutes. You got. We move through quickly. Go ahead. Come on, please. Give him 2 minutes. Give him 2 minutes.
I think that the
the
three
case
of
of the-
you honestly did a real good and fair job with what you're saying. I've got a couple of points. One is that I was told that we were going to have trouble getting to the design review if we didn't put those benches in. There's no way I would want those benches in there with that liability, 1, and 2, that you got a bench right next where people are sitting out there eating in the patio. And that's, in my mind, ridiculous. Secondly, this is the peachy color, which is quite different than what you're seeing up there. I don't like that either, quite frankly. And thirdly, if you've seen the Burger King on the corner of Dorn and Central, we were the first one to design something like that. It has river rock on it, and it's been copied throughout Burger King. And we want to do the best job we can, quite frankly. So
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I have no complaints with the way you handle it. I'm really appreciative. I've been frankly, in 50 years in this business, I've been to some other design reviews that were not quite as effective.
Great.
So
Thank you.
I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I lost my agenda.
Hi, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve this evening, if we're able to with the
3 sets. I have 2 sets.
Did all of you just get 2 sets?
I have 2 sets
We got
here.
2 sets.
Okay. I'm sorry, then let's just go with the 2 sets that you have.
Okay, I have April 8th, and we had a full house that day, so we're able to vote on it.
Can we do that? Or?
Yeah, we got a forum.
You want to do April 8th?
So do you up 8th? You want to kick it because nobody's here? Preference? Anybody?
I've gone through it. I'm
okay
fine.
with it? You okay with it?
Yeah.
Get a motion for April 8th minutes?
Move to approve April 8th.
There's a second.
Second.
Motion is made to approve the April 8th minutes. Roll call, Mr. Malikian.
Yes.
Mr. Baladian.
Yes.
Mr. Garagos.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries on that one. And then, I'm sorry, what was the other?
April 22nd.
Okay, you should be able to do that one as
Well,
well.
the problem is I can approve up to, because I left the last one. So I
Should
don't
probably
know
hold
if you
off on
can-
that one.
Okay, why
And
don't we
then
hold off?
March 25th, I never got. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. We'll hold that over as well.
Okay, seeing nothing else, staff, any items, staff items?
I don't have any.
Did you enjoy these?
Wow.
Thank you. You are adjourned.